let's get started. So hi everyone, welcome. I think there's some new people on the call, so just do the quick intro and then get right to it. So welcome to Virtual Cafe Oleh. This is our online course that we've otherwise been teaching in the Tel Aviv hub on Monday afternoons, now we're Monday evenings. And the idea is to help you with everyday Hebrew that you may or may not be learning in Japan, but is very much everyday Hebrew. It's the Hebrew you need every day. It's probably the equivalent of the English that you use every day in your respective countries of origin. And maybe you're finding frustrated that you don't know how to articulate a specific or talk about a specific topic in Israel in Hebrew. That's what we try to do here. And we really want to make it as user-focused as possible. So answering whatever questions you have, both during the class, and there's plenty of time at the end to answer any questions you have about what I cover, what you're interested in, as well as we get a lot of feedback into the Nefesh B'Nefesh office on different topics that are of interest. For those who don't know me, my name is Jay. I'm a volunteer with Nefesh B'Nefesh. I'm just coming up on my 14th Aliyah anniversary, which was done through Nefesh B'Nefesh. And it's really, I'm really happy to do this. I think it's very important that fellow Olim by choice, which is what we are able to articulate themselves as eloquently as they can in Hebrew as they do in English. I'm in Jerusalem today because I started teaching a public speaking workshop at Shalem College and tried to allay their frustration with speaking in English by talking about what we do here and that there's always ups and downs. So today, we had a request from a couple of weeks ago that we didn't get to of one of our regulars who came across a word that at first I don't remember if they could read it or not read it, but when they read it, they thought it was rather funny. And it was the word in modern Israeli culture that we use for someone who's in a startup. You'll hear the word startup, or as we say it with an Israeli accent, startup, quite a lot. But the person who's actually doing the starting up, the person who's either the entrepreneur or the person who works there, one of our regulars came across the word, thought it was rather funny. And I'm going to share it with you in the context of something we've talked about a lot, which is slang, but more importantly, how new words are created. If you remember, Hebrew is an ancient language, but as an everyday language, it's really new. The classic story of Eliezer ben Yehuda, who tried to revive Hebrew into a modern language at the end of the 19th century, had to deal with all sorts of challenges that, you know, we take for granted now. We don't even think about necessarily. Like, for example, how do we pronounce Hebrew? How do we create words that are, you know, relevant for the 19th and then 20th century, but didn't exist when Hebrew was being used back, you know, 2,000 years ago? And so one of the solutions to that is something that was created then, and we still have to this day. And I'm going to start sharing my screen to show you that before we get to the words for today. Just open that up. So one of the things that we have is this guy. It's called in Hebrew, Ha'akademia LaLashon HaIvrit, the Academy for the Hebrew Language. Those of you who don't speak English or are either native speakers of other languages or are fluent in others know that many other languages have their own institutes of language that basically standardize how language is created. So those who speak French, there's one for French language. Those who speak Spanish, there's one for the Spanish language, German, Russian, so forth. And they standardize not only grammar and pronunciation, they also standardize how new words are created. So for example, those of you who understand French, I can barely understand, but the stereotype about French speakers is very true, that they're against many cognates. Cognate is just the word that you borrow from one language to another. So French language really tries to create its own words. And so they've created a lot. There's some that still stick around and are annoying to people who want to keep the language quote unquote pure. So for example, le weekend. instead of a French in terms of how you would properly say the end of the week for in French. And we have that in Hebrew as well, right? There is no such thing as a 100% pure language. Certainly as speakers of English, right? English is a hodgepodge of Germanic, Romance, all sorts of other languages. Hebrew is no exception. Modern Hebrew is no exception. Sorry if that bursts people's bubbles, but it's true. Hebrew is itself a collection of different languages. Even the modern Hebrew we speak today is influenced a lot by non-Semitic grammar to make it easier for us immigrants to speak it. But this academia tries really hard to create new words, and they do an awesome job. Not just on the website, they have a great Facebook page. If you want really good content, let me see if I can pull it up actually as we're talking, because it's just a lot of fun to watch, to read rather. Let me see here. I think they post once a day. Same thing, Ha'Akademia Lashon Ivrit. You can just type in Academy of the Hebrew Language. And so you'll see here, they have cute graphics, they do all the time. And then they'll do these little infographics to explain something in Hebrew that they hear a lot. So for example, this one, right, from yesterday. And they're talking about how you say one vegetable, right? Because we're taught vegetables in Hebrew is yirakot. How do you say a vegetable in Hebrew? Well, the challenge, as they say here, is yarak, and it's not yerek. Yarak is a vegetable. Yerek, as you see here, they explain to you not only how you pronounce it, but they tell you what it means. And a yerek is any kind of wild green plant, not a vegetable, which they're pointing to as the cabbage here, right? This is great. It's easy to read on their Facebook. And what they do back on their websites, which is a lot of fun, hold on, there we go, is they have a whole section called Ech Omrim Be'ivrit. We know this to mean, how do you say this in Hebrew? How does one say this in Hebrew? And they have come up with, they sit around and they invent new words. They take precedent in the Hebrew language and in Hebrew history, they find an equivalent and they try to create something new. So what you can do is you can go to this section and it's called Ech Omrim Be'ivrit. You see that also up here in the website. And you can press on you can get a random array of new words. So this one I happen to come on are the two words for amorphous and cartography. Because of course it's a living language, right? We need all these words. So the word for amorphous in Hebrew is natul tzura, which makes complete sense. Natul, those of you who have ever gone and ordered coffee in a cafe, you know this word, right? You know this word when you're ordering decaf. How do we say decaf in Hebrew? Natul caffeine, where you just simply say natul. Natul means without. It's a fancy word for without. And tzura is a figure. So without figure, amorphous, the exact same word. Instead of the cognate amorphi, which people will say, you can say natul tzura. Same thing for the word cartography, because of course we're all needing to know how to say this on a regular basis, right? All of us map makers here in the audience. Cartographia would easily be understood by anyone in Israel, right? Cartographia, they could understand, but instead, the Hebrew Academy has decided they have created a word which makes complete sense as well in Hebrew, mapa'ut. Mapa, a map, just like in English, mapa. Ut, at the end of a word, is usually some sort of noun, meaning like the general theory of something. And we have all sorts of different words that end in ut, like atzma'ut. Atzma'ut is independence, right? It's not something you can hold necessarily, but it's a general thought. It's the same idea here, the study of maps, cartography. I could do it again. Let's see what just pops up, and then I'll stop and we'll go to our words for the day. Benchmark, great word. Any of you who are in finance, who knew there was a word in Hebrew for benchmark? It's not benchmark, it's nekudat midud. That's an awesome word. Nekuda is a point or a mark. Midud comes from the word to measure. Madad is he measured. So a point of measurement, like a benchmark, is a benchmark, right? A benchmark you get to where after you've measured getting to a certain place. This word, wow, this is a new one. Resonance in Hebrew is apparently tehuda. Amazing. You could sit here and go through all of these and they'll have stuff for everything. And they go through the alphabet here, right? What I want to teach you is the word that came up through one of our class participants and teach you some other words that are new, and then how to recognize when a word is a cognate, how to recognize when a word is new, and when you use one over the other. So here we are, okay? Move this over. So the word that our friend had was startupist, okay? Startupist. Now, first off, I know this is not Hebrew for a number of reasons. First off, Hebrew words, as you see here, it's in row 2, column D. Hebrew words do not come this long. Hebrew, we've talked about this many times, is a very conservative language. We're very good about keeping things concise, and we use the same form again and again. And when you see a word with that many letters, you know it's not Hebrew, or at least its origin is not Hebrew. We may use it every day in Israel, but its origin is not Hebrew. The second way I know it's not Hebrew is that ending, that last 3 letters, east, right? Startupist, I-S-T. All of us native English speakers know that ending, right? It's like chemist or artist, right? That I-S-T usually indicates it's someone who does that thing. An artist is someone who makes art. A chemist is someone who does chemistry, or if you're British, is someone in a pharmacy, right? IST at the end of a word is someone who does it. So we can figure out in Hebrew, startupist is a startup, plus east, which they simply just took from English, mushed these two parts of the English language together and came up with a word that makes complete sense in Hebrew, or at least in Israel makes complete sense. And what's interesting about this word is that it used to not be when you created a new word to describe what someone did, it wasn't east, it was ik, right? Like I wrote here, yud ke, ik. We all know this, right? Refusenik, kibbutznik, all these things, ik. Ik came from Slavic languages. When you want to say someone was of something, you put ik at the end, and that was understood by Ashkenazim in the 20th century, what they were talking about when they needed to create a quick new word. So kibbutznik, refusenik, a very important word in the army here is called a jobnik. A jobnik is someone who serves their time in the army behind a desk. Sometimes it's a really good position, sometimes not. But ik used to be the ending of most new words that didn't have a full Hebrew context, like jobnik, like refusenik. Startupist is, once again, a great example of American influence. East at the end of a word is coming straight from American culture. Israelis for decades have been consuming American culture and learning American-style English, and this is a great example of it. Now, I asked someone who actually sits in the Tel Aviv hub who works with startupisting, do they actually use this word startupisting? Because it's a mouthful. And I also know that there's a word for it in Hebrew. It would be in that Academy website, and it's yazam, right? I wrote right over here, just to the right of it, the Hebrew equivalent of startupist is yazam. Yazam is an entrepreneur. It's the best way to translate startupist is an entrepreneur. But yazam means that, and yazam is Hebrew. Obviously, the word entrepreneur didn't exist, 2, 3, 5,000 years ago in Hebrew, but it makes complete sense because we have other words that have the same sholesh, those 3 letters that mean everything. So we have the verb lizom. Lizom is to initiate. Yizuma, Yuzma is an initiative. So when I see yazam, I understand where it's coming from. I understand because I know a little bit of Hebrew grammar, it's meaning a person. And so I know yazam means entrepreneur. Yazamut is entrepreneurship. But steltapist is also words. So I highlighted them both in yellow to make it clear. You'll hear both. I prefer yazam. First off, it's easier to say. Fewer syllables, easier to say. Steltapist is just a lot, and especially if you feel uncomfortable using, saying the letter resh, whether you can say resh or resh, there's nothing like that in yazam, so it's a really simple word. And again, the Academy goes back and tries to create new words for our new reality. Because Hebrew is an ancient language, like I said, but it's always trying to create new words to befit our reality. So the next one. This is a classic one. You already obviously started hearing about it in the 1990s, is milshetet. Milshetet is the Academy's invention for the word internet. Okay, pretty simple. Internet, exactly what it is, it's the internet. Vast majority of Israelis will use this word that you see here under cognate, internet. They'll say it like that, internet. They're not going to say internet because we don't have those sounds in Hebrew. We say internet or internet if you can't say resh. But the point is, for all these new words, especially words that weren't born out of a Jewish or Israeli context, we have a word that's invented. And in this case, the Hebrew word that's been invented to say internet is milshetet. Now, all of you, because you're all on Zoom, you've all had to go and get Israeli internet through one of the providers. And you all have never, ever seen this word milshetet. Milshetet is the word that you bring out in cocktail parties to amuse and impress other people. You don't use this in everyday language, milshetet. There's a very popular show on Channel 11 called Hayudim Ba'im, The Jews Are Coming. And it's a satire show on Jewish history and Israeli history. And one of the latest running skits they have is about when the internet first came to Israel in the 1990s, and they keep calling it the Hamil Shetet. And it's seen as so dinosaur and so old-fashioned because they keep using this word to emphasize how old it is. But all these words have a context, right? And that's what I also want to make clear here. That startupist, yazam, they all have reasons why we're using them. And it's the same thing here with internet and milshetet. Milshetet comes from the Hebrew word reshet. Now this word I'm sure you've heard before. Reshet or reshet means a net. It also means a network. The older version of reshet is literally a net, right? It's something that's all connected. And so you simply take that, put it into a modern perspective, and it just means a network. Reshet is a network. So they took the word for network, right? Because what is the internet? It is interconnected networks. That's what it's short for, interconnected networks or inter-networking, whatever it's called. And they just created a new noun using existing Hebrew grammar. They came up with milshetet. Again, you're not going to use this word every day, but it's good to know that there is, quote unquote, a Hebrew equivalent, even though internet is basically Hebrew. The next word. The next two words are some of my favorites. We talked about this before when it comes to diseases. And I just absolutely love these two words, but I always get a chance to use them. No judgment, of course, on myself or you, but they're great words to know. The first one is hangover. Now, you'll see this word written out just like I wrote here in the cognate, hangover, and it's exactly what you think it is. It's a hangover, as in I drank too much. I have a hangover, okay? You'll see this word used, hangover, more than its Hebrew equivalent. The Hebrew equivalent is chamar moret. I love this word, chamar moret. It's quite a deep word. So first off, you know it's a disease because diseases in Hebrew always end in et. See at the end of this word, it begins chamar moret. It's like kalevet. sahevet, shachefet. You may not know what any of those diseases are, but anytime you hear that pattern, that vowel pattern with the taf at the end, a-e-et, you know chances are it's going to be a disease. And in this case, it's a disease. Chamel molet is a really cool word because it comes from the word chemel. Chemel, those of you who have a Jewish text background will know this is one of the words in Jewish texts, starting from the Tanakh and moving onwards, that means wine, or it means some sort of intoxicating spirit. It's actually a cognate in all the other Semitic languages, in the major ones, in Aramaic and Arabic. There's some version of this word, chemal or chamer, and so they took this in modern Hebrew, because who had a hangover 5,000 years ago, right? They took this word, they made a new disease out of it, chamal molet. You drank too much wine. That is hangover, okay? Chamal molet, you'll hear every once in a while. I think it's a great word. It's got that cha in it. It's a great dramatic word. The next word, though, you will hear both of them easily. And when I highlight in yellow, those are times you're going to hear both words in everyday Hebrew. The next word is jet lag. Now, unfortunately, none of us, very unfortunately, none of us suffer from this right now, or at least the vast majority of us won't for any time soon. But jet lag used to be very common for Israelis. And you would see articles about this all the time, how to deal with jet lag. So again, the Academy came in and created a new word for jet lag, ya'efet. Ya'efet, again, it's that a-e-et, so I know chances are 90% it's going to be a disease. And it is. Jet lag, right? How do I know it's a disease? Well, first off, it's a-e-et, but this is I think this is a very clever word because it's a combination of the words la'uf. La'uf is to fly, not as in a plane, but as in like a bird, to fly, and ayef, tired. They took the two words together. They saw that they had very similar letters, right? As you see that in the notes, la'uf and ayef. They both have an ayin and a fe as part of their root. They came up with the word ya'efet. It's just a very creative word, I think, to describe something that Israelis at least used to suffer from a lot, and hopefully will suffer again from soon. So to recap before I get to your questions, and maybe you have some more of these examples that you've seen over the years. Hebrew, like all languages, is always evolving. Usually when we talk about a language evolving, it's slang. Some people like slang, some people hate slang, but that's the example of a language always evolving, always changing. Excuse me. In this case, we have a lot of words that are borrowed from other languages, like startupist, like internet, hangover, jet lag, and so forth. But we also see an attempt to make a Hebrew word out of it, right? Like that is our reality. We want to speak Hebrew. We want to make this part of our language. And so you see, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's totally by random accident, right? Mirshetet never took off. It just didn't take off. My venture to say is that internet was so exciting and so new of a thing, they wanted to keep up with this new exciting thing, that the English, this international word, was much more appealing than this reshet word. Whereas ya'efet and chamal moret, they aren't new things, right? A hangover and jet lag aren't new innovations in anything. But these other ones are. Yazam is another one. Yazam, I think, is the winner. I personally find it a winner because it's easier to say. It's fewer syllables. It sounds like Hebrew because it is Hebrew. It doesn't have any weird things in it. Again, because it's such a concise word. There's other reasons why I get through this list. If I just pull it up again before I get to your questions, we just pick a random letter here. Let's take ayin. Show you what comes up. What did we get? Baby greens and a combination transaction. because why not, right? You've all heard, if you go into the grocery store and you want to buy salad mix, Oleh baby. That's how it's written in the Hebrew branding, Oleh baby, which are just baby greens, right? As it says here in English. And now look at what we have in Hebrew. It's al-alei tam or al-alim. No one says that. No one says that. Or you have combination transaction. Iskat kombinatzia turns into iskat mishalevet. That one sounds better, right? Iska mishalevet, because we use this word mishalev, to combine, to put together all the time. Kombinatzia, it's clear what that is, but iskat kombinatzia, people may not get what it is. Okay, so long story short, before I get to stop and answer your questions, is that new words are always being created. I highly suggest, even if you can't read everything on it, is to follow the Academy on Facebook. I'm going to cut and paste the copy. I'm going to cut and paste the website, their Facebook page, into the chat window so you can follow along. It's just a lot of fun. It's really clever. They explain things. They explain how to say things as well. They even give, this is also a great series they have where they give the meanings of names, why we have certain names, what are their origins, but what do they mean? So here is the example of Boaz. What does Boaz mean? When was Boaz mentioned in the Bible and then in further literature? Great resource for you in learning Hebrew. So let me just put this in the chat window. Control V. Okay. Explain if you can the difference between Ketiv Chaser and Ketiv Maleh. I can't, Ruven. It's a good question, but I can't also because not everyone is there language-wise. What I would say is, yeah, I can't explain that. Can you comment on Ayef and Ya'af? Both mean tired. So like I explained, right? Let me go back to that word for jet lag. Sorry, if I can get this back. Share screen. Share. Go back to the word for jet lag. As you see here, it's a combination of two words. It's taking the similar consonants of the word for la'uf, to fly, as in like a bird flies, not like a plane flies, which sort of defeats the purpose when we're talking about jet lag, but that's beside the point. And the word for ayef. Ayef is tired. So the word la'uf, to fly like a bird, ayef, tired, and they saw the combination of those letters. They mangled them out a bit, and they said ya'efet was the word. I guess they figured ayefet would sound too much like ayefa, which is just how you say tired for in the feminine. So to make it clear, we're talking about something slightly different, but still related. They just changed the order of the letters just a bit to say ya'efet. And that's how we come up with the word. But again, great word. Okay. Other questions? If you can't type, you can unmute yourself. Other questions about anything else? Great question about flu. So flu doesn't, it follows in the sense that it's a bunch of, it's vowel, consonant, and it's followed by taf at the end, but it's a different word. The word for flu in Hebrew, let me write it out, is shapat. Okay, shapat. The word for flu in Hebrew is shapa'at. So it's not the exact same thing, but it's pretty close, right? Consonant, vowel, ending with taf, feminine words, meaning flu. And this is any kind of flu, by the way. Bird flu, swine flu, all the fun flus. So yeah, that's the word for flu. Some of them don't follow this rule. Actually, the most common one, the common cold, doesn't follow this. That's either sinun or hitstanenut, is a cold, like a head cold. But most other diseases follow this rule. Yeah, it's a great word. Okay. Other questions? It can also be about anything else.
Excuse me, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. It may seem silly, but it seems that corona is universal throughout is it a universal word?
Yes.
In every language, is it corona? It feels like.
So that's a great question. Again, I would say that's because of, number one, its universality, and that's a great point. And so we want to keep using the same language as everyone else because we all are in this together and we want to find a common.
That's interesting.
But we have talked about this before, is that modern Hebrew has a word for a virus. And this I'm always happy to do again. And this is where you'll see the difference. Hebrew, you're going to see two different words on a regular basis. Let me write them in the chat window. Did something weird there. Okay. In Hebrew, we have two words that mean virus in English. The first word is the cognate, virus. Virus, when we were first dealing with corona, way back in January, February, when it was being reported from People's Republic, the very, very first articles about it were using the word virus. It quickly changed to negif. Why? Because virus can also mean a computer virus. It's any kind of virus. It's not necessarily a biological virus. Negif, we've already used multiple times in modern Hebrew with SARS, with other outbreaks of viruses. Negif is the modern Hebrew word for a virus. It comes from the word guf, as in body, because right, a virus is a particulate that enters your body. And it's related to a very Hebrew word, magefa. Magefa means a plague. So the idea of the way the word virus, negif, is constructed is negif is the entity that creates a magefa. The virus is the thing that creates a plague. Same thing here. So it's true, corona, we do not have a version of it. I'm sure there are some languages that have created their own word for it, but I think the idea is because we're all facing the same virus around the world, it's better to use the same language to describe it. That's just how it is. Also, when you go and get tested, I believe it still says it says in English COVID-19, which is the official now worldwide term used for the disease if you are infected and you suffer. But that's a great question.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, corona also has a base actually in Hebrew from keren, from the crown.
I know, keren in Hebrew means a horn. Keter is a crown. So it sounds like Hebrew. You're totally right. It definitely sounds like Hebrew, corona. But corona is, keren in Hebrew is a horn. Like one horn. Keter is a crown, which is the word corona. But yes, it sounds like it could be Hebrew. Corona. Certainly you can pronounce it like that. I mean, that's the joke, right? That you can take almost any word from a foreign language, you pronounce it as in Hebrew, where you say resh, or you make the vowels shorter, and it sounds quote unquote Hebrew. So startupist is a great example of that, because when you say startupist, it doesn't quite work the same way. But that's a great point. Any other questions?
I commented before that you can also say ya'ef is tired. So ya'ef, it follows right off. But then the idea that it comes from oof, la'uf, that's really cool. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, in modern Hebrew, we usually just say ayef. We have other words that mean exhausted or tired. Ayef is usually just tired. But yeah, the idea is la'uf and plus ayef. It's a great word. Okay. Any other questions? It can be about anything else, not necessarily what we covered.
I tried to send an email a couple of weeks ago. You did that session from the newspaper.
Yes.
That was incredible because
Oh, thank you.
it gives a window into what's going on in Israel. I'm here in the States, but for people who are Olim, if they want to know what's going on around them, it's you introduce some really cool expressions and I say it gives a window into society. I really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. Actually, that's what we're going to do next week. Next week, we're going to do the same thing again, but we're going to take a different newspaper. We're actually going to take a multimedia channel. So one of the news sites that also has a TV station attached to it and radio. So not only can we go through the news, watch together how you can watch TV online, Israeli news. Okay. Great. Okay, unless anyone has any other questions, keep it a short day. But like I said, next week we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go through the news together as it actually appears in Hebrew in real time. Pick it from that day, and it's going to be one of the news stations, news websites, media websites that also has a TV station and maybe a radio station connected, so you can also we'll learn together how you can watch and read the news together. Okay. Several people asked about recording for the session. Yes, this is being recorded. Nefesh B'Nefesh can provide you with the link when we're done. Just be in touch with them, or they'll be in touch with you with the link for it.
We're going to send an email to everyone tomorrow with the link, so no fear, we will send it to you.
Great. Okay, and next week, we're also, because we have a lot of people signing up, which is awesome, we're going to play around with what in Zoom they have breakout rooms where you can meet in smaller groups, and maybe I'll give you some homework to do during our class next week so you can practice talking and reading the news together. Because what could be more Israeli than talking, if not arguing, news in Hebrew? So let's break your teeth on it as well. So with that, toda rabah, thank you all for joining, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.